Hello and welcome to another Dog-Eared Discourse Top Shelf Recommendations episode. This is Dani, and today I'll be recommending The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams, and this is part of a trilogy called the Winnowing Flame Trilogy. This is an amazing book. I gave it 5 stars. I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about it already multiple times on how much I really enjoyed it.
Have you read the whole trilogy?
I have not, but I'm really excited to read the second one.
The whole trilogy out?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
There's some friends I have that won't start a book series unless the entire series is finished.
Oh, okay. Yes. So it is all out and everybody is loving it. I heard about it off of all the BookTube community people I follow. I have never read anything from this author before, but I'm totally hooked. I absolutely love it. So this book is a blend of all the things, all the genres. So it's mostly high fantasy. It has a little bit of sci-fi with one of the races is literally like aliens. And there's some mystery elements to it. It has a little bit of gore, a little bit of horror elements mixed in with the sci-fi, and there is some romance in it. So
it kind of covers the gambit.
For sure. Yeah.
Could somebody explain what high fantasy is to me? Because all I think of when I hear high fantasy is Gandalf smoking his magic pipe.
That's kind of it.
Oh, all right, cool. Glad I'm on the right. I was on the right track. Thank you.
I would say high fantasy has to deal with new races, new worlds, magic, and other things going on. I don't know, Chris, you probably could explain it better.
I don't know if I can explain it better because I've heard a couple different definitions for high fantasy. I've heard what your explanation was, where it's pretty much a whole new world. And I've also heard that it deals with the level of magic involved in the world. So like you could say that George R.R. Martin's world is not high fantasy because it's got low magic intensity as opposed to D&D that has high magic intensity. So low fantasy or intrusion fantasy is a subgenre of fantasy fiction in which magical events intrude upon an otherwise normal our world.
Oh, okay.
Whereas high fantasy is new world. Basically brand new world.
Oh, okay.
Oh, brand
so
new
you're-
world.
Yeah.
Danny, you nailed it then.
Yeah.
Good job.
Well, thanks for looking that up. So the book starts out in the city of Abora, and it is a shadow of what it once was, and its people are on the verge of extinction since the death of their tree of life. Now, Aborans are like a vampiric type race, and they're very tall. Their skin is perfect, flawless, but it has almost like a wood, the like lines and stuff, like polished wood to their skin. And this tree of life of theirs, I think it's pronounced Ysurgil, it would produce sap for them, and that's what sustained them. But there had this giant war called the Eighth Reign, and their tree died within that war. They ended the war as victors, but they ended up having to turn to human blood because now the tree could no longer sustain them with the sap coming from it.
So they started off kind of vegan, and then they had a war, and now they're not vegan anymore. They're now more people-oriented.
But that was not without consequences because they got a blood disease called the Crimson Flux, which is driving them to extinction. And it was really gruesome death for everybody.
That's not great.
Damn, you could say they're fluxed.
Another reason this tree is very important in this book is because it would drop these giant fruits that would become war beasts, like dragons, griffins, like cute foxes and armor and things like that. And the war was actually against this alien race called I think it's pronounced Jurlia. Those like monsters were really the only thing that could defend the world against this alien race. And since the tree is dead, the tree can no longer produce these fruit monsters. So everyone's pretty much fucked if they come over again. So they're under the impression that they won and that they don't have to worry about this alien race anymore. But now people are starting to have dreams that they're coming back.
I mean, I would too. Like our
I
only
would be having
defense,
nightmares for sure.
our only defense is now dead. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds like a bad day for everyone.
Right off the bat, it's like a very unique story, and very interesting. You want to know what's going to happen. Everyone's kind of doomed at this point if this alien race does come back. There's multiple points of view in this book, as most fantasy. One of them is, I believe his name is Tourmaline, and he is an Aboran, and he's seeing everyone die around him, and he's like, nah, I don't want to sit around for this. And he's kind of younger. He was young during the war, so he didn't quite have that like bloodlust as his like parents and everybody else did, which those are being affected the most by the Crimson Flux. So he feels like he's relatively safe. He's not going to get this disease. He's going to try to be careful, take it slow. So he's like, I'm a peace out. Y'all have a good day and a good life.
Find another tree to suck on.
Yeah. So he goes out in the world and he ends up getting hired by Lady Vincenza de Grayson, aka Vintage. She's this eccentric, wealthy woman on a mission. She's an explorer looking for any of these relics from the 8th Reign War. And she hires him as her bodyguard because he has this sword from the war from his dad, and it's actually called the 9th Reign, and it slays all these monsters that are in this world while she's trekking along trying to find these artifacts from that last war. And then another point of view is a witch who is in a prison, because any witches are put in prison because they can produce a very strong green flame, which reminds me of another book we read, The Forgotten Beast of Eld, where Sybil had a green fire going in her fireplace. So the green flame is called Winnow Fire. And I think it's interesting. It's like Winnowing Trilogy is the name of the trilogy. So I feel like there's going to be a huge part of that to come later. Mostly Tourmaline and Vintage are the main characters, and then the witch Noon is her name. She ends up escaping and she's a fugitive, and she joins up with them, but she's still kind of a little bit of a minor character. You don't get a lot of her backstory as much as you do the other two. As far as the magic system in this, it's the fire. They can like change shape with their fire and like attacked in different ways. The blood that Tourmaline has to sustain himself on gives him immediate healing properties and power. And I'm trying to think if there's any other like magic so far.
When you say you can shape things with the fire, does it mean that like they turn it into kind of like how the fruits of the trees turn into creatures? Does it turn into like fire creatures?
They could. They don't do that like in this book, but they can definitely shape it into stuff like little discs or circles or whatever. So probably first half of this book, you're just like, what's going to happen? And everybody's backstory is really, really interesting. Vintage is rich because her family has this huge vineyard and she sells the wine. And everything's being affected by these artifacts that are left on the world. So yeah, super interesting. I would probably recommend this book for anybody that's okay with the multiple points of view, but it's also very fast paced. There's not a lot of description in the world. It's more the characters and the monsters, and there's definitely a mystery going on.
So question real quick.
Yeah.
When you say multiple characters' point of views or multiple point of views, how many are we talking? Are we talking 4 or 5, or are we talking like 100?
There is the main 3 points of view, but then you do get some of the like villains' points of view, some of the extra types of like tribes of human people. So I would say probably under 10. But maybe 8, around 8.
That's manageable. Do you have to remember all of them? Well, as in...
They're kind of like minor characters, but they're very well described and unique, so they kind of like stand out.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. I was just having flashbacks to Game of Thrones where you're introduced to a new character every paragraph about, and you have to figure out their whole backstory each time.
No, the minor characters are definitely there just for breaks from like the main trio characters, but also it gives you an idea of what's going on in the background in all these different areas.
Well, it sounds interesting to me.
Yeah, I really like multiple points of view, so that sounds great to me too. And the magic sounds fun.
Yeah, anything with giant trees I'm in.
Giant trees for sure.
No, it sounds really fun.
Oh, another thing that I just remembered is the witches fly on these giant bats. They have little like
Nice.
saddles and they like fly around on those. So yeah, I think that's probably one
That's
of my
why
favorites.
you gave it a 5 out of 5 because of the bats. Yeah.
When you
That's like
mentioned-
my favorite thing about the book is like the giant creatures. I
Nice.
just think it's so fun.
When you mentioned the vampires used to suck on the tree sap and then they became vampires, it reminded me of a book when I read when I was a little kid called Bunnicula.
I love Bunnicula.
Oh my gosh.
It's a little bunny that sucks the life force out of various vegetables.
Oh my gosh. How cute.
Have you read Bunnicula?
No, I haven't.
We'll have to recommend it next time.
It'll be right up
That's
Juan's alley.
Screw Ninth Reign. Go read that book.
Go read Bunnicula.
We'll also read Bunnicula, but Ninth Reign sounds amazing.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening today. And
thanks, Dani.
if you don't see me next time, I'll probably be reading the second one. Bye.
Bye.